We're live.
I'm live. Can you look up and see what the next two May book talks are in Library Market for me, because I forget.
Yeah.
Welcome to Book Bites with Maggie. My name is Maggie. I'm the Youth Services Assistant here at Napanee Public Library. Welcome to our Digital Readers Advisory. Today we're going to be talking about books that have kind of like a circus theme. Books that have like a circus theme or being put on show. So I've actually got a very surprising wide genre of books, and I didn't realize what a wide variety I had until I started pulling them for today's episode. The storm siren is going off in the background. Can you guys hear that?
Yeah, that's okay.
It's like super loud. Okay, so the first one that I read, it was one that I saw coming through in catalogs, and I requested it for our library because I was a little bit unsure after reading Water for Elephants, which is not here in my stacks, by the way. That one is way overdone. Because that one left a lasting impression on me from like decades ago, so I did not bring that one to be part of Book Bites. But when I saw this nonfiction book, this is Les Standiford's Battle for the Big Top, P.T. Barnum, James Bailey, John Ringling, and the Deathdefying Saga of the American Circus, I was like, I have to read that. Now, one, because we had this obsession with The Greatest Showman, the movie that came out a couple of years ago. I'm not gonna lie when I say we went to the movie theater multiple times to watch that movie. There's something about watching a person with some type of identifying characteristic or something that makes them stand out that really captivates me. So I can't quite wrap my head around how else to describe that other than it's cool to see people that come from different cultures, different walks of life, and get a moment to glimpse them, to see kind of what it's like in their day-to-day life. But now after reading some of these books, I feel horrible for taking like such an enlightenment out of the entertainment purposes of which some of these people have. So you're gonna kind of get that based on what I'm talking about when I'm reading these books to you. But in this one, this is gonna be like an American history, and it goes back and forth between some newspaper articles, and it's very well investigated, and it's gonna flip between all the different types of circuses, whether it be a train circus or a traveling circus, circuses by caravan and horse-drawn trailer, and all these different types, and it brings them together. And through fires, oh my gosh, I couldn't even tell you how many fires happened in these books that have totally disbanded circuses, and they've had to come back up.
Are you talking literal fires?
Yeah, literal fires. I mean, because think about these giant oil-soaked canvas tents. Just a spark is going to make them fly. And the circus has been around, for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. And so, like, even before electricity, in order to light up a tent, they're going to be using actual flame. So lots of fires were happening. But this book totally captivated me. And what was really, really cool is there's lots of pictures. So as you're reading it, you get like giant sections of pictures so that you can really visualize what they're talking about. And it's got the elephants in it. And there's really sad elephant parts that I had no idea actually happened in the circus that had nothing to do with Water for Elephants. But the animals in here are really great. This is a book that we have in our collection. Again, this is in our nonfiction section, which is currently moving to Book Logic. If you need help finding this one, let us know. As always with Book Bites, if there's any of these titles that you like, we'd be happy to set them aside for you and put them on hold. The favorite quote in this one that I wanted to share with you was this: "A trend in technology in recent years has been to push individuals into greater and greater electronic isolation. It seems safe to assume that in our future, a sizable portion of our entertainment will come directly into our homes," which you now know, "and we will view them in solitary pleasure. As a result, there will be fewer and fewer opportunities to create special groups of audiences like we did in the time of the circus." Now, I will take a chance to point out that Napanee is not too far from the Peru Family Circus. So if you are looking for a circus type thing to add to your summer bucket list, check them out. Their family circus timeline is like in mid-July, and you can go down and actually watch the kids' family circus in Peru. Okay, so we go from a nonfiction book to a teen nonfiction book. Sarah Miller is an author that I've read. I think I've read almost everything that she has written, and I'm currently reading another one. Violet and Daisy, this is the story of the vaudeville's famous conjoined twins. It's going to read like a very well researched upbringing of our subject matter here, Violet and Daisy. So they're conjoined twins. They are born very surprisingly, and all through their life they are put on display. Now, if you're unfamiliar with what the vaudeville circuit is, it is exactly like somebody scouting around. Think about, what is the nonfiction books over there that have like all the pictures? Ripley's Believe It or Not. Okay, so it'd be like Ripley's Believe It or Not, where you have somebody going out and they're scouting, just like you would with sports, but finding people that are unique and bringing them together in like a concentrated format. A vaudeville circuit is exactly that. So historically, you could go and visit a vaudeville site, and you could go from tent to tent to tent and see a fat person. You could see a person who could swallow swords. So you'd get that circus theme, and Violet and Daisy, because they were conjoined, were put on show. They were expected to make money for these people. This is the life of them. So it goes from before they're actually born, through their childhood, once they're basically sold into the show, and then as they grow up and they decide to have their own identities, and they kind of take it upon themselves to market themselves, and they put themselves in shows and things like that. And so just like when people are selling out giant stadiums, they were able to do that because of their musical and talented performances that they were basically brought up to learn how to do. You get a real sense of what their life was like. Now, it even goes as far as Violet and Daisy through adulthood trying to like have romantic relationships as a conjoined twin, and what it is like, and the expectations of people all around them trying to tell them, you should separate, and their identity in being conjoined twins. Sarah Miller does a fantastic way of bringing every perspective to the story, and just like in Battle for the Big Top, this book is going to have huge sections of pictures, so you can get a visual perspective of what they are talking about and how they would have to sit in order to keep their sister comfortable. And they're just really good pictures. So it's a good, fun way to add to the story. This one, because it is written for a little bit younger audience, it's going to be in our teen section, but it's in teen nonfiction. So this is Violet and Daisy. We do have this as a physical book, again, with the pictures in it. But if you wanted to listen to it, we do have it available on Libby as well. So there's that one. How are they conjoined? Okay, so they both had their own head and upper torso, and they were just conjoined in like the lower spine region, and like the spleen and the last part of their digestive tract. So it actually gets very, very descriptive towards the end of their lives, because, well, they're not alive anymore, but I don't know how else to describe. Like, one dies before the other, but because they're conjoined,
the other one
is going to have to die too. Yeah. So, sorry, they're dead.
I didn't know that could happen.
And that is like the Chinese men.
Yes.
Yin
and Ling. Yeah, something like that.
That is so shocking to me. I didn't know.
Well, you think about it. They're going to be sharing the same blood supply. They're sharing.
Yeah, I just figured if one died, they both died at the same time. But I mean,
they died pretty quickly.
Because you're thinking about like the toxemia and the.
What year was that set in? Do you know roughly? The 50s?
This?
60s?
Like when they were born?
Yeah.
It says 1908, but I don't know if that was when they were
early.
born.
So like the early 1900s.
Yeah.
The vaudevilles were very popular in the early 1900s. Like Napanee had one.
See, I thought circus was more popular in like the 50s and stuff, but
Yeah, so this is older.
Crazy.
So then we go from nonfiction to, this is going to be another teen book, but this is YA, and it's a time slip. This one reminded me a lot of like Rachel Houck. So the time slip narrative is based around a solitary object. In We Walked the Sky, this is Lisa Felder's book. It's displaced by 55 years, so it is it's from the perspective of two teenagers. So the first teenager is escaping a very, very harsh reality at home. She is not raised well. And so she's trying to leave her home, and she joins the circus. So our first main character then is raised in the circus. She becomes a tightrope walker. Her daughter is born into the circus and takes on caring for the animals. And then when the daughter grows up and she gives birth to her daughter, so the first teenager is now the grandma, and then the granddaughter is also a tightrope walker. And so you have 3 generations of women. Now, Victoria, when she passes away, that's the grandma, the daughter and the granddaughter are still a part of the circus, and that's the only life they have ever known. But then the daughter is like kind of scouted by an animal sanctuary, and so the mom decides to leave the circus, and then that leaves the granddaughter kind of like up in arms. She has no idea what type of life there is outside of the circus. And as she's going through her grandmother's belongings, she starts to like get this backstory of her grandma that she never knew. So it is a fantastic time slip. So it's going to go back and forth, chapter to chapter, grandma to granddaughter, and what it is like in the circus 2 generations ago to now. So it's a very fun story. So in this one, it crosses 2 generations, like I mentioned, and then you also have the uniqueness of what it looks like to have a family based on the people that are surrounding you, not just by blood. So this is going to be in our teen section. We do have it available as an ebook as well. Back to another nonfiction one. This is Wildcat, The Untold Story of Pearl Hart, the Wild West's Most Notorious Woman Bandit by John Bosennecker. I hope I said his name right. This is a very well-researched nonfiction book. And in this one, too, you're going to get... There's kind of like an overarching theme of like not being treated well in their childhood. So in this one, Pearl Hart, the exact same thing. She is raised in a family with multiple children, and they're like running away from their home at age 2. That should be a huge clue that something is very, very wrong in their home. But running away by age 2 and continuously picked up by the police to the point that their family is notorious for not being able to keep their kids at home. And she runs away and joins a slick of bandits in her early informative years, and just keeps upping the ante and upping the ante. She dresses like a man. She is totally incognito as she is dressed like a bandit. She's robbing stagecoaches and all types of things. Now, just like we were talking about the displacement in like the vaudeville circuit in these ones, vaudeville is also going to take place in these. So when you're out in the Wild West in the setting of this book, which again is historical, so it's very realistic in that they run into these coach trained circus lines, and then they kind of like hide amongst them. So then you get tightrope walkers, and you get sword throwers, and you get all of these people who are notorious for all different types of things. It's a perfect place for these people to hide out. So even though that is not what the story is about, you have a strong circus theme involved in this. And then it also is interesting to see how she gets out of things and when reality catches up to her. So as you're getting into the later parts of this book and you're learning more about Pearl Hart, she is not experiencing freedom her entire life. She is eventually caught, sent to a women's prison where she is kind of like on this pedestal. So even amongst other prisoners, she is really a glorious person that all these other prisoners aspire to be. This was a fun read for me. I had no idea what she was about before that, and one of my favorite things that I enjoyed about this book was something that I felt put Pearl Hart well ahead of her time. She says this: she declared to herself that she would never consent, never taking law that she nor her sex, other women, had a voice in making, nor to which women had no power under the law to give consent. Now there's so much for this declaration. Why should a woman be indicated, put on trial, convicted, and sentenced for an offense under a law in which she had no bearing or voice in making that law? So I thought that was pretty cool of her to use her notoriety in a way where she really contested what the expectations were of women in her time of life. Okay, so nonfiction, we've got YA, and now this is a fun mix-up. This is going to be a contemporary romance. This is Open Door. Tessa Bailey kicks off her Hot and Hammered series with Fixer Up. Now, I can only add this one into our circus themed book bites here because this is the story, a well overdone trope of two best friends. One leaves town, comes back, and realizes that his best friend's little sister is all grown up. There's some attraction there. So it is a well overdone trope, but Tessa Bailey does a great job with that one. The wit is good, the humor is fun, the characters all have fantastic backstories. But as I was reminding myself what this book was about, I can add it into our book bites because in this story, our main character wants to be a clown. She is a clown that you can hire for like birthday parties and fun events, and she takes a lot of how do you say? She likes it to be a part of her identity.
She's
the
very
humorness.
passionate about it.
Yeah, she's passionate. That is a perfect way to describe it.
But then her family also makes fun of her for it.
Yeah, so she's the youngest in the family, so she's already trying to like live up to these other expectations of her older siblings. So when you say then that I want to be a clown, obviously they're not going to take her very seriously. So there's arching storylines of triumph and trying to get her family to understand. And then it is an open door romance. The scenes in this one are a little bit heavy-handed, so keep that in mind. We do have Fixer Up as a book, an ebook, and an e-audiobook in our collection. As a reminder again, we do have all these books. If I'm holding them up, they're available, that we can put them on hold for you if they strike your interest. The next one is Circus Mirandas by Cassie Beasley. This is the first in, I think it's a trilogy. I haven't read the second one yet. I don't know if there'll be a third. But in Circus Mirandas, this is going to be a middle grade fantasy. Now, when I was reading this book, I felt like there was really strong ties to the Chronicles of Narnia series. I didn't find anybody else that really thought that way when I was looking online to see if anybody else had comparisons. But in this book, it kind of reminds you of, what would be another one that does this? The stories being told across generations. So in The Princess Bride, so you're thinking about there's somebody telling a story to somebody else on their deathbed or being sick. So you get that kind of that storyline. In this one, we have our main character is a little boy. He is always told by his grandfather who raised him this story about his grandfather when he was younger going and experiencing Circus Mirandas. And it was this place of intense pleasure, wonderful memories, and Circus Mirandas was this fantastical place that totally spun into all these different stories that he then tells his grandson. Now, in one of these stories, the ringleader of the circus in Circus Mirandas, he grants the grandfather like a wish for doing something wonderful. But the grandfather doesn't want to use his wish right away, and he asks if he can save it for later. That's very important because in Circus Mirandas, then multiple decades pass, and then on his deathbed, Ephraim is like I want to use my wish. I want to live longer for Micah, his grandson. And so Micah takes it upon himself that he is going to find Circus Mirandas. He is going to go and ask the light bearer to grant his grandfather's wish to help him feel better. Now, in this story, you're going to also have a mean great aunt. So Ephraim's sister, Gertrudis, is going to be in this story. She is trying to speak nonsense into Micah. Do not believe what he says. This is not real. All these different things. And so you have, it's almost like this mean family relative that's trying to break this bubble. This was a really good story for me to kind of instill in children, and I'm going to definitely read this one to my kids, to instill the value of what a fantastical setting can look like, and that when you're always trying to seek to go back to another place. So that's where you get those Chronicles of Narnia feelings. In this story, without giving away the ending, it all comes together full circle. So you'll figure out why Aunt Gratuitous is the way that she is. You will figure out some of the stories behind the pictures on the wall and what is happening at Circus Mirandas, even when it is not a place where they're able to visit all the time. It just kind of appears. So this is going to be in our children's section. We do have it available as an e-audiobook as well. Okay, so right now, and I was hoping to finish it and I didn't. On my lunch break today, I got to like 20 pages till the end of this one. This is The Miracle and the Tragedy of the Dion Quintuplets, again by Sarah Miller, who wrote Violet and Daisy, one that we mentioned earlier today. This is, again, one going to be in our teen and nonfiction section. It is written very similarly. So in this one, we have a family from the 1900s who already have 5 children. They have no electricity in their home. They're living during the Great Depression and paycheck to paycheck. They that's not even the right way to say that. They were living below their above their means. They had no extra money. And the mother thinks she's giving birth to a 6th child. During labor and delivery, finds out there's 5. So there's 5 identical daughters. That's not even the end of their story. So there ends up being 12 children altogether, but the 5 quintuplets, because they're the first in Ontario, they are separated almost immediately from their family, and in an effort to keep them safe from germs and their family and all these different things, they are pulled from their family, given like milk is flown in because the mom can't like provide for them in the capacity that they need, and then they're exploited, absolutely exploited. So from the family doctor who takes credit for them even though he didn't even make it before the first birth, to all these people who start making dolls that look like them and making movies and putting them in commercials, and even Shirley Temple wants to meet them. They build a hospital across the street from their home, and these girls are pulled out from their family home, put in this hospital across the street, and they're basically put on display so that when you're reading it and you're like trying to picture what they're talking about, it almost sounds like they're on exhibit in their playground, and you can walk around the outside and go and see them. And where their town is, it ends up being renamed or kind of tagged as being Quintland, and it becomes more famous than Niagara Falls in Canada. So imagine all of these people, more people than visit Niagara Falls, go and they try to experience what Quintland is, and they're walking around these corridors of this hospital viewing these girls who are on display. So even though this book has absolutely nothing to do with the circus, being on display like that kind of has the same themes. So I definitely wanted to add it. I'm not done with it yet, so you can't have it until I finish it. I should get it done yet today, but this one, just like her other Sarah Miller books, is full of different sections of pictures, so you can get a real sense of what the doctors look like, the incubators that were used, and then as the girls are growing up, what their expectations were. They were even raised speaking a different language than their siblings, and so as where I'm at right now, the girls are just slowly being reintegrated into their family after lots and lots of lawsuits. There's a disconnect between the siblings because they're literally not raised together. So there's even pictures of the billboards and stuff like that. So this was a good read for me. I'm still working on it, but it has totally baffled me how somebody, a government society, can take it upon themselves to remove kids the way that they did in this story. So this is The Miracle and the Tragedy of Dion the Quintuplets. I didn't write down if we have this one in other formats, so we would have to check for you. Obviously the pictures are in the hardcover one, so that would be a great option. Okay, these are the next 2 that are on my radar. I have not read them yet, but this is The 2 Feathers That Fell from the Sky by Margaret Beeble. This one says it is going to be kind of like, it's historical. 2 Feathers, a young Cherokee horse diver on loan to the Glendale Park and Zoo from the Wild West show, is determined to find her way in the world. 2, that's her name. 2's closest friends in Glendale is Hank Crawford, who loves horses almost as much as she does. And when Hank comes from an ambitious family of black landowners, there is no better than 2 at fitting in the 1920s Nashville's highest segregated society. And so this is about 2 in her time in the circus being a horse diver, which is going to be a totally new theme to me. And then this one was also brought up. This is The Night Circus by Aaron Morgenstein. This one I think is fantasy as well. The circus arrives without warning. There are no announcements to precede it, no paper notices plastered on lampposts or billboards. It is simply there, and then when yesterday it was not. Within these nocturnal black and white striped tents awaits an utterly unique experience, a feast for the senses where no one gets lost in the maze of clouds, meandering through the lush garden maze of ice. Stare in wonderment as the tattooed contortionist herself folds into a small glass box, becomes deliciously tipsy from the scents of caramel and cinnamon that waft through the air. So it already sounds like a great book where the senses is going to be a big part of the storyline, and there's some artwork in this too. I wonder if that has a part to play in it. So we will see. I will have to give you guys a follow-up on how those ones are. All these books except for the Quintuplets is going to be immediately available if you're interested. You can add yourself to the hold list if you want to read the Quintuplets when you're done. That's it for our circus book bites. Thank you, Martha, for looking this up. In May, our 2 themes are going to be teachers and librarian influencers on our first episode on May 5th. And then we're also going to give you a whole bunch of titles that would be great beach reads this summer on May 12th. So that's all I have for you today. If any of these books, again, pique your interest, let us know in the comments, and we'll leave a list of all of the books that we mentioned, as well as the formats that they're available in the comments. So thank you so much for joining us. I hope you found some books that really kind of open up your world and you'll find something new to read. Have a great weekend.